I'm Brad Anderson, retired CEO of Best Buy.
What is standing in the way of job creation?
Well, every time somebody decides to hire somebody, it's an act of optimism. You've got to believe that there's going to be a customer for the services of that person you hire. And in most cases, you've got to believe that that's going to last. And that it's worth making the investment and taking the risk. And if you're somebody that cares about the people you hire, that you're making a commitment to that person that hired, it's probably going to last a long time. So before you're going to do that, you're going to want to really believe that this is the right thing to do. And every time you put an obstacle in the way, you put a risk, a regulation, some kind of encumbrance that makes that thing more difficult to do, you diminish the number of people that have the courage to hire people. And I think that's what we've got going on right now.
What businesses are hiring today? New companies or established ones?
One of the things that happens for new businesses versus old businesses, and I learned this firsthand when Best Buy was a new business, is new businesses have very little to protect. Everything is the future for a new business. And that makes it much more courageous. And that's part of the reason we see new businesses doing so much more of the hiring. They'll take a greater level of risk than an old, mature business that has something to protect. This is really important from a public policy standpoint. Ironically, the stuff that we do that makes it a little harder for older, mature businesses to make that investment is crippling for new business because they can't handle any risk. When we were a small company, we barely were surviving. And anything that tipped us over the edge would kill us. And what we've got right now in terms of public policies, we're doing too many things that encumber the new business.
What is the value of private sector jobs?
One of the great things about our private sector is that it can fail. And that it takes an individual leadership, an individual passion to go into actually creating a job. It also takes and you also have the consequence of when you're wrong. And so oftentimes in terms of public sectors or places, even with big business, where you have a chance to cover up being wrong, you create these dead jobs that don't matter to customers and don't really work for the employee. When you have the discipline of a customer having to respond to the job, and for new and small business, that's really core just to survive. That's a very good discipline in terms of the creation of quality jobs.
How are increased government regulations affecting job growth?
So if I'm going to start a new business, I know first off the odds are against me. Most new businesses are going to fail. So I better take some money that I can lose or a place where I'm willing to take that level of risk before I decide to do that. Once I start that new business, it's not likely to be successful for quite a while. I'm watching this happen personally with a family member who's doing this. And so I'm going to have to survive with sweat equity and everything else in order to try to have that business live long enough to find out if it's got a customer and can survive. Every time I either reduce the incentive for doing that or I make it more complex to do that, businesses fall off the radar screen and we have one less new business created. That doesn't, by the time you get to something as big as our economy, that adds up and we start seeing slowing of job growth.
What is the government doing that hinders job growth?
Let me tell you a very tangible, specific story about how government regulation can affect that. I've got a niece who just started up a business. It's been running for about a year and a half. She's not really making much money for the business, but she's still got the passion to keep trying to grow. The state of Oregon put in a tax on employees, regardless of whether the company was making money or the employee was profitable and she had to let her single employee go. There are a lot of other less specific examples, but every time you put that kind of constriction in the way, maybe you need to, but you better make sure you need to because there's going to be a consequence.